Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Whale X Buildtree. We're here with a fantastic artist to discover, Lucho Poletti. He's probably actually known to a good deal of you who are tuning in today, but he was somebody who's been on my radar for a while, and it was a real pleasure to dive into his work and get to know a little bit more about him in my research. But I'm really looking forward to this conversation today. So. Thanks, Lucho, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on, Ryan.
Yeah. And, also for those who are joining in, if you don't know, Whale is the leading omniversal membership club for the natively digital. We are here to empower creators, collectors, any sort of tech enthusiast who's interested in Web3 art creating of any sort. So, Buildtree is a fantastic platform that we've had on other programs. They're working with fantastic artists and creators of all types to provide tools and a platform for them to really expand their audience, expand their art, and it's great that they're featuring artists like Lucho here. So Lucho, again, I'm sure a lot of people know who you are, but could you give just a kind of a rundown of what your background is? I'm particularly interested in your kind of journey from uh, maybe a more non-artistic or physical art background into this digital art crypto world.
Sure. So I guess I'll start at the very beginning then and quickly kind of go through it. But so when I was a young child, it was art for me.
Mm,
That was the first thing that my sort of parents realized that I did a little better than my older sister, who was kind of like doing everything better than me. And they saw a couple drawings and they saw sort of like a talent, like an innate talent in me for art. So they sent me to acrylic painting courses and charcoal sketching, pencil sketching. I did like compete in art competitions in school and stuff like that. So I did grow up with this dream and sort of, interest in art. And eventually, growing up in Miami and having a lot of people around me who um, sort of directed me into, or got me thinking that being an artist isn't a realistic sort of career path. So I decided to study. I went to business school. I said, well, I think business is a broad thing. I can sort of figure out what I'm going to major in. Eventually, I decided on finance because I found it interesting. And I eventually graduated with a master's in science of finance, which is like a lot of financial engineering. And you sort of learn how to like calculate bond yields and stock prices with discounted cash flows and all that. So the long story short on that is that the most valuable skill I picked up from all that was doing like financial modeling in Excel, which is like a total, different side of your brain than art, right? It's totally logic and math
yeah.
and numbers. Um, so I studied that, and I graduated with my master's in 2012, which was a couple years after the global financial crisis. And the crisis, it did shock me, it confused me, and it sort of like sparked this curiosity in me that I started to ask these questions like, what is this banking system, and how could they possibly let something like this happen? And it impacted me. I really thought twice about entering Wall Street and getting into investment banking because that was actually my track. I don't know if it's probably not something that too many people know of, but the CFA designation, Chartered Financial Analyst, is something that the top Wall Street analysts do. And I started that. I did the first year of the program and passed the exam, which is like it's like an exam that you study 6 months for. And the plan was to get a job at an investment bank. And the way I started feeling about it was this sort of like uneasiness where I said, do I really want to be part of that? Do I really want to be selling, these investments? And sort of like the idea that investment bankers had sold. I grew up with my single mother because my father passed when I was young, and investment bankers sold my mom Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, like these subprime debts went to zero. So I was really angry at it. I was like, you know what? Screw these guys. I don't want to be one of them. So that's how I started thinking, you know what? I can use this skill, like this analytical skill, and just contribute to something else. So I looked for jobs, and in Miami, there's like a pretty big hub of big liquor companies. You have Diageo, who is like
Yeah.
Johnny
Yeah.
Walker and Smirnoff, and then Pernod Ricard is like Absolute, Chivas Regal, and Jameson, and all those brands. And Bacardi is there as well. So when I was in the job market, something popped up with Pernod Ricard, and I took the job. And basically, like, it was really interesting because it wasn't just pure numbers. There was actually like a very, very strong branding and marketing and creative people that I worked with there. So I learned a lot. I learned a lot in terms of marketing and products and consumer goods and advertising. And that sort of ties in as well with sort of the style I eventually adopted as a digital artist. But the long story short on the career is that I did it for a few years. I was excelling, I was doing very well, but the further along I went, the more unfulfilled I really started to feel. I felt that I had this inner child that was being starved. Um,
Mm.
and I had this this need to express myself that I was not acting on at all. So I jumped ship with no plan, really. I said, you know what? I'm not going to do this anymore. I had like aggressively invested in a 401k, and I actually liquidated it. I
Oh,
moved, yeah, I decided also. So all my life in Miami, Florida, my mother eventually remarried, and I felt, okay, I'm not like the man that needs to watch after my mom anymore. Like, she has a husband now, he's going to take care of her. So I decided I really need to get out of my comfort zone. I moved
mm.
to Austin, Texas, specifically because I had some friends there, and I knew that the arts culture was very strong. Music, street art, just art in general. It's all over the place. You can just it's on the street. It's everywhere in Austin.
Yeah.
So I moved there, and the first thing I did was I bought a MacBook Pro. That's always been my sort of tool of choice for computers. And I downloaded it. I started paying for Adobe, and I downloaded Illustrator. And I said, it was actually in late 2015, early 2016, and there was this like political election season sort of gearing up at that time. And it was I suppose, the Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump. Um,
Okay.
and I decided that I don't support either of these politicians, and I want to sort of use that attention towards the election to create artwork that questions whether this is really what's important. And I started to create art that was sort of criticizing the government, criticizing just propaganda, and I suppose certain agendas that might exist to get people to act in ways that are not in their best interest. And this project was titled Politics. It was sort
Mm.
of like politics with the LOL in the middle, and
Yeah.
the first sort of slogan was that some jokes have consequences. And so I sort of developed like this propagandistic style there. At the time, as I haven't been formally trained. I didn't go to art school. I didn't really do anything other than YouTube videos, tutorials. And the first thing that I did to really establish my style and learn was I looked at artists such as Shepard Fairey. I looked at
Mm.
his propaganda style. I really felt that the images were impactful, and they impacted me. And I've always had this sort of fascination with propaganda. And as a child, I remember even like in history books, like in school, you would see these World War posters and stuff like,
Yeah.
with this sort of, messaging that's basically like, you need to do your part, and you need to enlist in this war if you love your country, and you need to buy war bonds. You need to invest in our victory. And I thought, wow, what authority these images hold.
Yeah.
What impact they have on the people that see them. And you don't need to have an art history background or really be educated in art to understand exactly what they say. It's more images that anyone who looks at really understands what they're trying to tell them. So I sort of ran with that, and eventually that's what led to me using that style in my Bitcoin art.
Yeah, and I think it's so apparent, it's the propaganda. I mean, obviously propaganda is designed for a reason, right? It's to be effective, it's to be appealing, it's to get your message across, and I think, get the viewer into what the message is that you're trying to, push. And I found it super interesting that you had that experience at Pernod Ricard. And Pernod Ricard is a legacy brand, right? It's I think the original formulation, when I was looking, it started back in the 1700s. The brand itself is from like super early 1800s. But and I used to work a little bit in the wine and spirits world, so I'm very attuned to the labels and the brands and marketing around these things. And you know what immediately drew me to your art, besides the kind of banknote art there, but I do think there's some similarities in the styles of what we see in a lot of paper currency, these banknotes around the world, and liquor brands. And I think they're probably coming out of the same eras, but there's just a lot of very fine detail. Ultimately, you're still trying to get across this image of power and probably money. Whether it's liquor or a dollar bill, you still want to convey both of those things, this value, this worth associated with it. But it's such an effective, powerful uh, aesthetic, in my opinion, and I think it translates very well. Obviously, I'm scrolling through your Instagram here as we're talking. You you've got a wide variety of aesthetics here too. It's not just strictly the banknotes that I think you probably really became known for, but you do start integrating in, other elements of popular culture, and these other aesthetics. I find that just really interesting. You said that you have got this artistic background, but did you end up um, you know evolving along the way to be able to do these kind of high level animations and illustrations? Is that something you've always been able to do?
No, no, absolutely not. I
Mm,
did. It was a long process. It was an evolution, and the I guess the impetus for me to start creating animated work was my involvement in the NFT space, specifically with Super Rare. So
Okay.
back in 2018, I'm sure you're familiar with Coldy. Coldy and Ikaitsa are two
Yep.
artist friends of mine.
They're great
At the
whale friends as well.
Yeah, okay, exactly. Yeah, Ikaitsa, definitely. So, Ikaitsa, I think you're probably aware, but he started a podcast called Curating Crypto back in 2018.
Yes.
So he interviewed like sort of like this cohort of all the artists that were making like really crypto centric crypto art, and some of the first artists on that podcast were Trevor Jones, Coldy, A Lot of
Mm.
Money, myself, Pascal Boyard. So we all sort of, bonded over that, listening to each other's interviews and sort of vibing with it. And I would reach out to Coldy and say, hey, dude, I heard your interview. You were talking about these papers. Like, I'm using these papers that, some of my collectors are not too fond of. What should I, sort of reaching out to these guys because I heard their interviews and I'm like, man, these guys are real, long-term artists who know what they're doing. And I'm sort of like running alongside them, but a younger guy who needs to learn a lot of stuff. So eventually we got to chatting more and more, specifically Coldy and Havo, like I was saying before. They started getting involved with Super Rare, and Coldy was minting very early on. He was telling me how, one-of-ones made so much sense for digital work. I looked at what I saw there and I thought to myself, I have these poster designs, I sell them as prints, and I do think that creating something that must be experienced on a digital display, for me, it just seemed like a stronger, and this may be a controversial take, but to
Mm.
me it seemed like, oh, that's probably a stronger form of digital art. If it's moving and it needs to be experienced on a screen, you can't exactly print it out and experience that same story. That makes it a little bit more special in terms of the digital token. So what I did then to start animating was I just used my Illustrator artboard. I started with my final composition for some poster design, and I exported one frame, and then I moved it a little bit and I exported another frame, and I moved it a
Mm.
little bit more. And
Okay.
so I did a sequence where, like, if I messed up at any point, I would either redo the whole thing, or, so it was a real janky, sort of way to create animations where
Yeah.
I would export all those frames, take them into a website, create a GIF, and there was my animation. So uh, my early works on Super Rare are these sort of stop frame, like it is basically like a stop frame animation. It's almost like the digital version of claymation or something. So I started like that, and there was one particular piece that I minted on Known Origin in 2019 that was called Virus in N Numerus, which is like a play on words for the Virus in Numeris, like strength in numbers, sort of slogan for Bitcoin. And this, talking about the range of visual styles I've used, it's very inspired by Alex Gray's visionary sort of psychedelic art, where I took sort of like one of his compositions and I recreated it from scratch to tell a story about Bitcoin in contrast to the banks. And it was like a very, very, I think almost 200 frames, a lot of moving the camera, sort of zooming in the art towards the camera. And I remember I was like at the point of having a nervous breakdown putting this together. And I just said to myself, obviously there's a better way to do this. this is insane. Like no sane person would create animations this way. So after that experience, I basically I opened up After Effects and I said, okay, let me just learn how to do this in a way that's a little bit, you know, we have these tools for a reason, you know. So
Absolutely.
so I started kind of taking my animations to the next level. It was a slow process of learning, but yeah, over time, the animations really became my main thing. And with my, I sort of used it, as I explained before, because I really love to create animated art as NFTs, but also for prints that I had, I found it really cool that, okay, if I make a print and I make the same, I use the same design to create an animation, I could put
Mhm.
an augmented reality layer on all of those prints, and then whoever has a print can enjoy the animation and engage with it. And if people, walk into their home, their office, they see the artwork and ask a question about it, then the owner could say, oh yeah, actually it means this, but it'll be easier to show you with this app on my phone. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I really found that a powerful way to share my art and help people really engage with it and sort of use it as that orange pill, if you will, so people see the Bitcoin art. They're not really too sure what it means, but the visual storytelling of the animation can sort of help to spark their curiosity a little bit more and maybe tell that story in a more rich way.
So is this like an example here? You would do this all frame by frame, or is this a little bit later into your
That's
process?
that's frame by frame.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That's super cool. And so, but now you've got higher level animation. Is that you, or I know you collaborate with people occasionally too.
I've collaborated on rare occasion, to be honest with
Yeah.
you.
Okay.
I did the last collaboration, and it's definitely something that if I were to criticize myself, I would say you really need to, branch out with other artists and sort of combine strengths and it's collaborations exist for a reason. I think that
Sure.
yeah, it's a way that two artists can come together with their strengths and make something sort of the two the sum of the two is
Greater
whatever
than
that
the.
greater than
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the
Yeah, the sum is greater than the parts. Yeah, yeah,
right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah, but
Uh,
that's I feel like that's also kind of a unique thing for Web3, right? And I'd be curious, how you discovered that, again, in like that journey kind of into it and discovering crypto art, you know, being able to collaborate in a friendly way, in a supportive way, in a, in these ways that don't necessarily exist in the traditional art world, or even in the corporate world, right? It's a very different story when you have two artists in Web3 who are like, hey, let's do something together. Let's be equal on this. And I feel like we don't always see that in other places, right?
yeah, definitely. Going back to the last collaboration I did was with Carlos Marcio.
Okay.
Are you aware of his Infinity Room animations?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we did an Infinity Room. It was released on Super Rare, and you had it on the Instagram a bit earlier, but the one that has the Red Bull can spinning and the
Yes.
yeah, so that one, it was titled A Message Worth Repeating. And it was, hey, let's take my propaganda, let's put it in Carlos's sort of iconic um, infinity room scenarios and just have it endlessly repeat, this propaganda on the cans and the imagery on the walls. So I thought that was, I enjoyed working a lot. I enjoyed working with Carlos a lot on that, and I think it's a great example of sort of bringing our two strengths together.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. I mean, you've always got time, right, in the future to do more collaborations, and I also appreciate that you're thinking about it in in a deeper way. You know, it sounds like you're not just trying to do anything, probably just for the sake of doing it. There's a lot of, it seems like there's a lot of intent behind what you do.
Yeah, thank you. I do think that it's important to know when to say no to certain things. Like, I mean, I think that we like as artists in the space, we get people reach out to us all the time asking us
Hmm.
to do certain things, or would you like to do this? And for me, I've really been focused on taking my own art to the next level, and yeah, that's come at the cost of maybe not collaborating with a lot of artists and things like that. But the truth is that I've been exploring a lot of different workflows. I've been learning how to better organize my art to create things um, like bank runners, which I assume we'll get into more later.
Oh yeah.
There was so much archiving and organizing and setting things up a certain way and layering and naming things. And when I started creating my animations and minting my NFTs, I didn't work that way at all. I just had my one file where I would have all my layers all organized in ways that wouldn't make too much sense to send off to another artist to figure out. So I would say that I'm much more primed for collaborating now and ready for it to sort of execute things effectively. So yeah, definitely that's something that you could definitely expect more from me.
Do you think that that's that you know, obviously you're learning new tools. You said you're organizing better, you're doing all these things. Do you find that actually impacting your creative process or the creative output?
I do because it's a way to streamline the creative process, and it's a way to work. I mean, you're just working more efficient. It's like a work smart, not hard type of thing.
Yeah.
Where if you have everything disorganized and you need to pull in elements as digital artists, we have our asset libraries and we pull in our elements from a lot of places. And at least in my work, I'm always drawing on previous works to build new works. So when it makes sense for me, like I don't like to repeat things, but when it makes sense for me to incorporate images and sort of like bring them into new compositions, like knowing exactly where those are, having them, archived in the right formats and things like that, it's been really useful. I could actually call out a quick example
Sure.
of the last series that I released before Bank Runners was a three-piece collection that went by the title The Bitcoin Movement. And this was a something that I was inspired by this video I saw, which it absolutely blew my mind. I thought it was the most incredible thing I've ever seen. An artist that goes by the name Marco Brambilla, who
Okay.
actually at some point was a Hollywood director and directed Demolition Man. He sort of,
Ah,
yeah. Are you
yeah.
familiar?
Yeah.
Okay, so he sort of went his own way and started creating these insane video collages. And what he did with those was he took archival footage, like he just took clips from all these Hollywood films, and he put them. He would just isolate elements and create short loops with them, and he organized them in a way where it created these like really incredible video pieces. And I said, you know what? I love this idea. I have this huge body of animations now and elements that I can draw from. So the fact that I had, sort of organized them all in a way that they could be used, I decided, let's try this, let's try to create something, that it combined all my, well, not all, but let's just say most uh, elements from most of my animated works ended up in this collection. And basically, it was used to almost put like this milestone in my career as an animator and a Bitcoin artist and say, here's my whole body of work. I still stand behind it. I still stand behind the story it tells, and I'm going to put it all together in a unique way to sort of recap that and take everyone through my journey as an artist, as well as sort of draw a parallel between that and the Bitcoin movement as a whole.
Got it. Yeah. So maybe I want to get into the Buildtree project here, bank runners. We see some of it right behind you in your background. But maybe to set the stage for that, you know, you were talking about this earlier, kind of re-evaluating, I think, or looking back at what you're doing, knowing where your art and your, I think your roots and your narrative are taking you. Um, I think there's two big things here. One, obviously the banknotes, and it's very interesting to me because I also am very into numismatics and not so much paper banknotes. The collecting of those, but the art again, like the artistic style of these things, whether you're talking coins, paper money, whatever, it's super appealing and often, um, you know, there's a lot of depth and meaning behind these things. So I would be curious to know a little bit, just kind of what it is about a banknote that really attracted you. But then also there's that Satoshi mask, and I think like you definitely seem to look at Satoshi kind of as like maybe a muse of sorts for you. And I would just be curious if you could just talk a little bit about that mask as well.
Okay, so start with the banknotes and go to the mask after, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. So the banknotes definitely aligned with what you were saying. I think that when you look at a banknote, you're sort of looking at something very beautiful, something very ornate and detailed, and just the sort of Baroque and guilloche patterns and the stamps, the official seals, and the signatures, and the imagery of these presidents and people who are really important leaders. Everything about it is just very authoritative. And if you ask me, probably one of the most valuable things about the money is probably the pictures on it. So I think that the banknote style is almost like a no-brainer that it could be a powerful vehicle for crypto art, for art
Yeah.
about money. And specifically in my case, where my mission is to sort of expose the flaws of the fiat system and criticize central banking and sort of show people through symbolic imagery. This money is created out of debt, it's printed out of thin air, and there's a better alternative. So very early in my run as a Bitcoin artist, I started to pick up the banknote aesthetic. I did a number of currency styled certificates in 2018 and 2019, and it was something that I basically learned how to create a banknote from scratch through that process. Where, okay, so I need to create, I need to set a paper color in the back. I need to set some texture in it so it looks like a banknote. I need to put borders that have that style. I need to create corner emblems that have some sort of symbol on them. I need to put messaging in key areas and sort of use these images to recreate that authoritative sort of feeling when you look at them, but have it all about Bitcoin and have it all about how Bitcoin is better money, and how Bitcoin's monetary policy is better than the monetary policy of central banks, or even highlighting the absolute scarcity of 21 million coins, and contrasting that with the endless printing of the US dollar. So I think that the banknote style, for me, it was something that it hit very early on. The reason why my art sort of picked up so much momentum in my early days was mostly due to the reaction to the banknote designs. I had
Hmm.
some larger account, like John McAfee and stuff like that. You know, people that were collecting these things and sort of supporting my work at that point. So I felt, you know, I hit a nerve with the banknote style. It was when physical collectors started really paying attention to my work, wanting to collect it, and actually, you know, collecting it over the years from that point. Um,
Yeah, maybe I can interrupt you real quick because I find it. This is also another thing that struck me is like you're essentially you're glorifying these banknotes and all the glory that is associated with, again, like the power, the money, the art, these images, and what we're supposed to feel when we see these things. But you're also memorializing them, right? And you're talking about kind of getting rid of them in many ways through your art. You know, is that something you think about and you grapple with?
I mean, it's a subversion, is what it
Mm,
is. I would say that my intention is to subvert the fiat aesthetic. You know, just that image that it's almost like, you know, the money is your god type of thing. You know, this holds so much authority and power in your life. And by the way, you might not even know how it works, and you might not even have ever questioned where does it come from, you know. So yeah, it's really about flipping that authority on its head, and using it against the fiat system.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so real quick then about the mask and kind of Satoshi in general. Um, you know, I think what's going to be interesting when we look into bank runners is that there's obviously lots of different figures there, and we'll learn more about that. But Satoshi, particularly this mask, I think does it is very iconic with your work, it seems. And where does that come from?
So this is another thing that I would say, I definitely have to say it's a sort of throwback to the inspiration I took from Shepard Fairey and his work with Obey Giant.
Hmm.
Um, what Shepard did was he used this Andre the Giant image as sort of like a joke in the beginning of his career, where he explains it was sort of an experiment in phenomenology to just create this sticker that says, you know, Andre the Giant is 7'4", 520 pounds, and he has a posse. And then he put that around town, you know, where he lived. He put it. He went and covered the running. I believe it was the running mayor's face. He covered it with a huge Andre the Giant, and got a lot of newspapers asking, you know, what does this mean? And a lot of people, you know, what is this? You know, so I thought that was very interesting, because an image that repeats, it begins to create a phenomenon, no matter what it is, whether it has meaning or not. So what I actually took from it was that I needed an iconic image that I could use throughout my works. And even if I wasn't putting my signature directly on the works, the icon image would sort of be a representation of, okay, obviously Lucio Poletti created this because it's using this mask. And the idea behind using the mask, it came from obviously the connection to V for Vendetta and
Yeah,
Anonymous, and that connotation where you see the mask and you say, oh, that's that. You either say, oh, that's Anonymous, or oh, that's V for Vendetta.
right. Yeah,
And then
someone in the Discord was just like saying, "Hey, is this supposed to allude to Guy Fawkes?" You know,
yeah,
like
yeah,
exactly, right?
The Guy Fawkes mask. So that's the immediate connection. Everyone recognizes that image, but then when you see, oh, but this one's different. This one has like this Bitcoin logo on it, and I did sort of streamline it a bit and make it more like a black and white iconic image that the Guy Fawkes mask has shading, and it doesn't look exactly quite like mine. There's some details that you can tell are definitely different. So I changed it sufficiently that I could say, okay, this is my own. It's definitely based on the Guy Fawkes mask, but for me, it's the Satoshi mask, and I used it in my work. Ever since that first decision to start using it back in 2018, and I've used it as sort of like this. It's something that allows me to fill sort of like this empty vessel of the idea of who Satoshi is and what he could possibly look like, or whether he is a group of people, or
Mm,
if he's male or female, like whether he is one of the cypherpunks listed on the white paper, or whether he's not. I could use that mask to sort of bring the idea of Satoshi into my works. And this concept of like, oh, we are all Satoshi, where anyone who participates in this revolution, anyone who uses Bitcoin and really believes that it's a viable alternative to the central banking system as a money system, I can put that mask on them, and I can use the mask to basically portray that they are a I guess like they are a force for change in the world that's promoting Bitcoin and contributing to its adoption.
yeah, it gives it and immediately made me think of Bitcoin angels. And I know you talked about Trevor's work in the past, but evangelists for this new money system, for a new way of operating in the world. You know, the financial systems clearly have shown problems, if not clearly shown they're broken. There's a lot of things that many of us, I think, came to the blockchain looking for these solutions, and artists too, right? Creators of all types looking to see how these tools can benefit them, and help, whether it's help their art, right, or help get their messaging across and make it more clear. But all right, so that's super cool. And now, I wanted to dive into bank runners, and I'll preface this by saying, I was really hoping to do a live mint today. I was really excited. I had, I was going to get in on it, but you sold out. You sold out within 24 hours of launching to the public. Maybe but I feel like the private sale, when I was watching it, kind of like getting really nervous. Um, I think maybe close to half of it sold out in private, which I think is a testament to your collectors. But you know, this is a very interesting project with 1776 digital banknotes. So that's a great number in my mind for many reasons. But this embodying this revolutionary spirit, as you say, everything you were just talking about here with Guy Fawkes, the mask, subversion, rebellion in a sense, and breaking free of these systems. What was the kind of spark? Was this something that you had always been thinking of, and this was just the opportunity to do it? Or, I know you also worked with Nifty Gate Time to some degree on this. So Yeah, where did this come from?
So bank runners, the sort of lore behind it and the background story, it does begin with my poster designs, my poster works in 2019. And actually, I do go through it on the same collection page a bit further down.
Hmm.
That I created this Bitcoin bank runner poster that has a character that's sort of defiantly running on top of the Bank for International Settlements, which I just chose because when I was doing research to put that image together, I said, okay, what if I don't want to put the Fed here? What can I put that could really represent, the banking system as a whole? So it's sort of like the central bank of central banks. So I created the poster with the character running on it, and the messaging was "Be your own bank," and sort of like the only the fastest runners get their deposits. And the idea behind that is, yeah, the fractional reserve banking system really, it is a ticking time bomb. And if enough people at the same point decide that they no longer trust it, which at some point that very well could happen, the bank run could be really a disaster for the whole system, and leave a lot of people really damaged financially. So I took that idea. At some point I created an animated version of that poster, and I had continued on into my animated series, a couple series where I did these certificate works, and basically just put a lot of work into individual pieces and release them as editions. And I had started sort of experimenting a bit with Bitcoin ordinals. And as I'm sure you probably know, but I'll get into it a little bit. Bitcoin block space is very expensive. And the whole idea with ordinals is sort of to have like these digital artifacts on chain. So the culture around ordinals is very much on chain. If you're gonna inscribe things, you should put the assets on chain, and that's how they're going to be viewed as pure digital artifacts on Bitcoin. And what I realized was that, okay, I can't just be inscribing, videos and inscribing GIFs and really heavy files. So I need to find a way to create layers separately, inscribe them separately, bring them together. And I put a pause on my participation with ordinals, and
Yeah.
I started exploring workflows and how can I create systems where I can sort of organize all those layers in a way that they can be exported and put together to sort of create like these recursive generative sets. So I came across or established the workflow to make it possible. And I thought to myself, I really haven't done this banknote thing in a while. I have a lot of messaging, and I've explored like so many, I guess, narratives and sort of slogans, and just different ways to communicate the way that I see Bitcoin, the change I think it represents for our world, and sort of that revolutionary vibe, and just proclaiming that Bitcoin, it gives you money, it gives you freedom with your money, it gives you censorship resistant money that lets you do what you want with it. You hold it, no one can take it from you. You can be your own bank. You hold your own keys. You hold your own coins. So I thought, I really wasn't too keen on sort of the narrative shift in the Bitcoin space, particularly where, and it's not exactly a direct criticism of something that I completely disapprove of, but I would say that like since the ETF has gone live and a lot more institutional adoption has occurred for Bitcoin, I do see like the culture around it sort of evolving into this. You know, you have like a very big subset of Bitcoiners that are very, you know, number go up type of Bitcoiners that they're not really thinking about, oh, you should use Bitcoin as money.
Mm,
They are even, you know, one thing that sort of bothers me too is like this culture that, oh, you do not spend your Bitcoin, you do not
right.
sell your Bitcoin, you do not establish circular economies with Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the pet. You know, I really hate to say this, but like I think that this is the way they basically feel, is that it's this pet rock sort of digital commodity, that it's digital gold. You hold it all your life and you pass it on, you know, to your kids, and you don't spend it, they don't spend it, you take loans against it. And I'm just thinking like, what is like, this is like, we're talking about like leverage and just like, this is not what Bitcoin means to me. This is not what sparked my desire to create art and, you know, tell people what Bitcoin is. Like that's not what I want to tell people Bitcoin is, you know. So I think I'm rambling
No,
on a
I know.
bit.
I think it's. I mean, it all makes sense. You know, you're seeing the message here. Uh, this is something we talk a lot about in Whale as well, right? This idea of um, what is Bitcoin for? You know, there's a wide variety of people out there who, whether they're Bitcoin maxis, Ethereum maxis, whatever. There's people that transact. There's people that don't. There's people that hold on central exchanges. There's people who are purely in the decentralized category. You know, there's a wide variety of people here. So, you know, I think that we try to welcome that, right? We try to embrace that, you know, people are entitled to their own opinion and do what they will. But it's been fascinating to watch the ordinals particularly come into play and this discussion come up, whether or not like this is the intended use for the network, or you know, this is the intended use for the technology, right? And it's kind of funny, and I think you alluded this too, right? That you've developed this technology that enables freedom in so many aspects, yet you want to put it in a box and not let it do anything, you know? So kudos to you and many other artists out there for leveraging that. And I suppose there's always this possibility that the developers on the Bitcoin protocol could like flick the switch, right? And you know, prohibit some of this from happening. But I find that you know, personally, I don't feel like that's going to happen. You know, because this is a way to actually bring more value to your protocol as well, right? And bring more attention to it, and you know, make people want to use it just as much they should want to use it for transactional, you know, money based purposes. I don't know. That's my thought on it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, any use for Bitcoin and, you know, a native way to spend Bitcoin and transact and create markets that are obviously denominated in Bitcoin. I don't see any scenario where that is actually a bad thing for Bitcoin. I think that even in some of Satoshi's writings, he sort of foresaw that once we get through a certain number of halvings and the block reward drops far enough, where, you know, we're at 3.125 today, we'll be in a couple years at just a little over 1 Bitcoin per block, and then, you know, 4 years from then we'll be under 1 Bitcoin. So the sort of revenue stream for miners from transaction fees is going to become more and more important, and it's going to become larger and larger a share of what miners earn for securing the network. And I think that over time, things like ordinals and the fees that it generates is going to definitely keep the network more secure. So I think that ordinals are a good thing. I do think that certain players, you know, in the Bitcoin space and even like big miners don't like it. There's one in particular who filters out the transactions. So if there's a big juicy block, and it's definitely in their economic interest to mine it, they're going to ignore it just because they think it's graffitiing their holy temple, you know. So yeah, I think that ordinals are a good thing, and it's ironic as well that when I started to talk about ordinals and my participation with it, I actually got more backlash from, you know, my Bitcoin Maxi, I suppose, followers and fans than I ever got for participating in Ethereum. So it was
Really?
kind of like, oh wow, so I guess you guys are slightly cooler with me participating in Ethereum now because you just hate ordinals so damn much, you know.
Oh, it's hilarious. Yet, you probably have a very dedicated collector base, is what I'm guessing. Based again on the performance here, and I'm sure that makes you feel good. But I'm sure you're learning about them constantly, right? And they're learning about you, right? It's a process.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, if someone who's, you know, sort of objective is to create value in the Bitcoin space and help support its progression and development and mass adoption moving forward, if they're looking at what I'm doing and they see the messages that my art is conveying, and they see over time that I'm true to it and I'm consistent with it and I'm really dedicated to it, if they're going to, you know, disapprove and unfollow, or, you know, say this guy's a shitcoiner because he's, you know, minting his Bitcoin art as NFTs. The only thing I have to say to that is that, you know, it's, to me, it's a tribalist mindset. It's one that actually is saying, and the culture in general around those people are more approving of US dollar Tether than they are of Ethereum. And it's kind of, you know, well, we have a decentralized money system. We have Ethereum also being a decentralized money system and network for all sorts of smart contracts and interesting things in the NFT space. And this is empowering individuals. It's technology that's adding value and bringing people in to the crypto space as a whole. So if you think that's your enemy, and you're you know, more fond of buying stocks and you know, using a stable coin than you are of other sufficiently decentralized cryptocurrencies, maybe you've lost sight of what really brought us here in the first place, the cypherpunk ideals and the sort of dream and vision for a decentralized future. So going back to bank runners, that I actually sort of in telling the story of bank runners leading up to the drop, which is something that I did put a lot of time and effort into. How am I going to, you know, tell this story? How can I really engage people with the idea of this collection and what it means to me and what I feel it represents? I came up with this idea to sort of declare it as a wake-up call. I used matrix sort of symbolism from the Matrix movies.
Yeah.
Some of it's embedded in the artwork. We have the White Rabbit. We have the Morpheus sort of red pill, blue pill concept, where I used a Bitcoin orange pill and a syringe full of dirty fiat currency, sort of as that choice, that decision to either go down the rabbit hole and learn the truth and see where that takes you, or to sort of take that green pill, so to speak, so the orange
Yeah.
versus the green pill, where you are blindly trusting a government which has clearly violated your trust through these waves of debt bubbles and currency devaluation. So I think that that sort of narrative is embedded in the artwork itself for bank runners, and it's featured in some of the traits, but also in terms of telling the story. I did really think it was important to frame it as this wake up call and a reminder for people who may have lost sight of what really are the values that brought us all here.
Yeah. Yeah. That is great. So then I guess the question that I've seen a few times in the Discord now too is, how long, you talked a little bit about the generative process. How long did it take you to create all of the artworks, and did you end up having to curate down to the 1776, or how did you get to that final collection?
So the concepting and sort of like that idea for the vision of how I wanted to execute bank runners, it started around June last year, directly after I finished this Bitcoin movement project that we touched on a little bit earlier. I decided, okay, it's time to move on to the next project. And now that I had sort of like that system developed to help me create generative works for ordinals in the future, I sort of went back to the drawing board a bit and reworked it in order to work with things like video elements and visual effects and all these things that you can't do as ordinals, because if you want to create something there, it needs to be basic path vectors and
Mm.
path animations, no visual effects. So sort of re-engineered it a bit and started, a long process where I can't say that I exactly spent, 8 solid months working on this, but if I were to sort of gauge like how much focused time I put into not only the creation of bank runners, but the storytelling that goes on top of it, and sort of creating these animations of the money printer, like the printing press for bank runners, and all the sort of visual stories. It was like a dedicated 6 months. The beginning of the process, creating all the designs, solid 2 to 3 months. Just thinking of, if you walk through it and try to put yourself in my shoes, things like 28 text themes, where every word on that banknote
Yeah.
is part of a theme, and there's 28 versions of them, and I had to make them all, sufficiently different so that they don't seem redundant. So even something like that, where having all those layers in my Illustrator artboard and sifting through them, and even showing them to a couple people and saying, like, does this make sense to you? What does this mean to you? What does this say to
Yeah.
you? Like, seeking a little feedback on it. The 48 characters, and technically 60 total characters, because there's 12 ultra rare one of one unique banknotes. There's
Right.
24 portrait loops. There is 22 of the running characters, either individuals running or riding bears or bulls or whales or camels, which were sort of a nod to the Silk Road saga. Creating all of that, it was, very time intensive, a lot of, there was 3D animation and modeling and just setting up all those characters. Also things like the background composition, like the backgrounds in the centers of the notes,
Yeah.
all that stuff, and creating the different versions of them and sort of doing the renders and making sure that, it's balanced and all that. It was a very, a long journey to get to the point where I could start looking at all the outputs, seeing how I felt about how unique they all felt, managing them in a database spreadsheet where I don't want to get like too technical,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
to sum it up is basically that, across the 12 groups of art layers, there's a numbering system where for each unique layer I created, I attributed a number to it, and I used a spreadsheet system to be able to pull that number up and a little bit of coding in After Effects to do the renders, where it used the spreadsheet to render each individual composition. So I filled my computer's hard drive with like thousands and thousands of these, reviewed them, flipped through them. The studio that I work in, which I guess you can't see now because of my background image, I
Yeah.
actually, which I think like if I don't explain it, people would think it's weird, but the room that I create all my art in is a room with completely white walls and no art anywhere to be found, no furniture or anything like that. And I have like a really high quality projector that I project on my wall,
Okay.
and I'll just sit there and look at every single piece, kind of so I can see it like, I can see it in a really large format and sort of pick out like if anything doesn't look great. So I did a lot of reviewing, curating, going back to the spreadsheet, deciding, okay, for the bank logos, I'll do this sort of pattern. I'll try this sort of pattern. For the corners, I'll try this other pattern. For the characters, I need to actually look at charts and analysis in my Google Sheets spreadsheet and see like, okay, I have this many bulls. Well, there's definitely more bulls than bears, so let's make bears more scarce.
Yeah.
And then okay, well, we have a classic, male Satoshi character and then a female version. Let's make the female more rare. Things like that, where I try to really look at sort of like the full scope of who participates in the Bitcoin and crypto space, and try to sort of represent all those archetypes. So you have like the moon boy who's really, dreaming about prices going up in the future and holding for that. You have the bulls, which, one of them is riding fast on a bull, like kind of leaning back a bit, like sort of like he's riding a chopper, sort of in control of the bull market and not planning to sell anytime soon. You have another character sort of flipping off his his middle finger, sort of saying like "fuck the banks," So try to represent like a lot of different people and sort of like attitudes, um, for Bitcoiners
Well,
and
you've
for
even got
people.
Moon Girl here. Like,
Yeah,
this one here, it's more rare than Moon Boy. And like I appreciate that you're not only you know, uh showing the different identities that exist within our greater crypto culture, but it's also perhaps a commentary too. again, the detail here, the balance, like you talked about, the fact that each one of these, I've been trying to kind of wave my cursor around, but like if you have note numbers 960, it actually says here, very much serialized, just like a regular banknote. And we've got these seals, that's just like you find on typical banknotes. But everything here is just so balanced in terms of proportion, shading, all the hatching that you do to kind of create the different types of shading. It's just it's just really phenomenal, and you're getting a lot of great remarks in the Discord. Folks like Easy and Crypto, popped in. I know you know them, but one person said, this is not unlike religion in the sense that many people have a similar purpose and origin, but there's these slight deviations in delivery and messaging that end up kind of creating this kind of chain friction that you were talking about. And I feel like you're still finding ways to appeal to everyone. These are on Ethereum, yet they're all Bitcoin banknotes. I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, I've been super thrilled with the response. I have to be honest with you. I didn't have any expectations for um, selling out quickly. I was prepared to, stick with it and, help share the collection for a very long time, anticipating maybe, I was prepared to wait months for a mint out. I don't know. I mean, the market for digital art isn't as strong as it's been in the past,
Yep.
to say the least. So just seeing, the reaction and the way that people in the Ethereum space are embracing this art, it really has encouraged me a lot, and it's inspired me to sort of try to bridge that gap more myself, and work with other artists in the space to try to be more united, because I think that, going back to the strength in numbers thing, if we all rally behind the philosophies and the values that underlie the whole crypto movement, then I think that things will go much go much better for every one of us.
Yeah.
And I even went so far as to, I don't do like these spicy tweets like quite too often, but
Yeah.
I fired one off a couple days ago that basically was saying that the .eth accounts were posting proudly Bitcoin art all over the timeline this week. And the Bitcoin maximalists that usually engage a lot with my art have been completely, radio silent. So
Mm.
I think that that is sort of like a testament to the fact that there are, as you said, like these differences in the ways people see things.
Yeah. Yeah. So uh, I definitely want to know, you've captured this kind of Bitcoin movement. I feel like you're not going to stop exploring it, but are you able to give us any sort of insight as to what's next, or what are you working on right now?
I'm working on a couple projects. I mean, mostly right now, I'm focused on making sure that bank runners, as like it seems like it's forming a strong community around it. I'm really trying to foster that. We
Great.
have some things that we're planning, that I'm planning with Nifty Time with Matthew, who worked with me to curate the collection. We're planning some things, to sort of reward collectors post drop, and sort of keep that momentum going in terms of people really engaging with the collection. So that's my immediate priority, and something that I don't I've never really done like that much or felt was that important for prior releases. But with a project on the scale of Bank Runners, I think that, and the way that it's presented as this sort of, let's get back to the revolution, run with us, join us,
Yeah.
own a piece. This as the way that I say is that I chose 1776 as a symbolic, number to sort of declare that it is this digital declaration of monetary independence. If you vibe with it, if you grab a piece of it, you're participating, you're putting your sort of seal of approval on that, and you're joining and confirming that this is what we're all here for. So I think that it makes a lot of sense for me to really focus on building a community around bank runners and sort of form that camaraderie with all these different artists and collectors
Yeah.
and people who are enjoying the art. But in terms of the stuff that I'm working on, I have been working on ordinals collections. I have a couple collections where the artwork is, I could almost say that it's 99% complete, although I'm always tempted to add more layers. And, I'll definitely probably add a few more things in to really take like certain rarities up a notch and make it a little more special. But
Yeah.
I have to really figure out some of the technical details in regards to preparing the coding and all that to execute them as
Oh, exciting.
recursive inscriptions.
Okay. Again, this is just something I think that to me is a testament here of the depth of your artistry is you're really thinking about these things. You're not just throwing stuff out there. And I think there is something to be said about just actually producing work and getting it out. You don't want to be somebody who just waits for the phone call or the email or DM, whatever it is, for a commission. But at the same time, there's an aspect of curation, I think, that comes along with any artist, their own self curation, and that's got a lot of facets to it. So, but there's still a lot more comments on the Discord. You know, people just found it. Someone said Trislet. Maybe you're familiar with them, but they thought it was a real breath of fresh air that you had all these OG collectors posting their bank runners on crypto Twitter, and just seeing more art on the feed as opposed to complaints. Talk about ETH go down, Solana, whatever the flavor of the day scam is. So that's really cool. I think that that's something to certainly be proud of. I'm sure you are. And I'm seeing the time here. I do have some questions that I put together that the community has been throwing in. If you've got just like 5-6 more minutes, is that cool?
Absolutely.
All
Let's go
right.
for it.
So first one, do you collect masks like Lucho Libre? Is that where Lucho comes from?
I do have a small collection of Lucha Libre masks.
Yeah.
I think that we actually didn't cover it in this interview, but I live in Mexico, so I moved before I really sort of like hunkered down and decided I'm going full speed ahead with Bitcoin art. I moved to Guadalajara, Mexico.
Oh, okay.
So we have on Tuesday nights we have Lucha Libre, and it's like the most amazing thing you've ever seen.
Awesome.
It's really cool, and I've collected masks. I own less than half of what I've acquired, because when I go visit my friends in the States, I like to bring them like really Mexican things. Like I'll bring them Lucha Libre masks, or little bottles of mezcal with like
Uh,
huge scorpions in them and stuff like that. So I like to sort of share the culture with my friends and loved ones. But I do collect Lucha Libre masks. The name Lucho is it is a name that it came from my corporate career. And
oh, interesting.
to make a long story short, I was like always this really focused on my computer, dependable analyst guy that everyone ran to when they needed like something quick. And since it was a liquor company, we would have parties and we would, go drinking and dancing and all that. And when people would see me sort of like loosen up at these after work events, they started to say like, dude, you're like a different person. Like I didn't even think that you were, social at all. And it's a name that they use a lot in Latino America for Luis, the name Luis.
Oh, okay.
And I had someone approach me and say, "Hey, so remember that thing on Friday, like on a Monday morning? Remember that thing on Friday? Like you're like Lucho at the party, but then you're Luis in the office." So that's my full doxing of myself. My last name is real. My
Yeah,
nickname is very closely linked to my real name, but I chose Lucho because I felt like it had a little bit more character. It was a little bit more unique for me to sort of move forward as an artist and choose a name that I think it's just a little more unique.
yeah,
And it also sort of means fight in Spanish. So luchar means fight. Lucha libre, it's a fighter mask. So
yeah,
as I am an activist artist and I am fighting uh, through my art and my images and the message that I'm sending out to have a better money system in our world, I think it's fitting. I use it, and there was a decision point early in my career where I went under hodl crypto with my first couple, maybe year and a half of
okay,
poster designs. And when
yeah,
I started getting media like, certain crypto sites that wanted to interview me, after the question came up a few times about my name, I decided to really consider, do I want to put my name behind my work? Do I want to use a pseudonym? I don't think there's anything wrong with using a pseudonym,
yeah,
but what my heart told me at that point was, this is what you're doing with your life. Like, this is a decision you're making. This is something that you feel very passionate about. So I wanted to put my name behind it. So
yeah.
so that's the really long story of Lucho.
No, I mean that is so interesting, and anonymity, pseudo-anonymity, doxed, whatever. Um, that it's something we talk about a lot, and whale community has a lot of it. I'm fully doxed. My name is Ryan, but people in whale know me as Mongoose. But we obviously have Whale Shark, and other folks in the community who that's their choice. So that's cool that you've embraced it as your identity. But just a quick follow up to that one from somebody. Do you still drink? If so, what is your cocktail of choice?
Okay, I don't drink too much,
Okay.
but I do drink socially. So I won't have a glass of wine or a cocktail at the home to relax or anything like that. But I do believe in the social lubricant of alcohol, and it's very called for and almost necessary in certain
Yeah.
situations. So I do partake at times. Tequila was always my go-to. I guess it was my destiny as now a resident of Mexico. But I love tequila. I've always felt that it gives you like a good buzz, but you sort of stay like a little bit more energetic, and
Yeah.
it's always given me a little less of a hangover. So I like tequila. I like everything that's based on agave. There's tequila, there's mezcal, and there's a little less known drink that doesn't export really because it's a little bit volatile, but it's called pulque.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's actually the nectar of the gods, and has a lot of like, ancient lore in Mexico. But that's
Right.
that's uh, that's the fermented nectar of the agave that basically is then distilled into tequila, and it has
Yep.
tons of probiotics. You drink it, you get like a nice little buzz, and then if you had any stomach issues the prior day, you feel a lot better the next day. So it almost feels like a sort of medicine in a way.
Yeah, if I remember right, that's when they like cut off the top of the plants and kind of scoop out the heart a little bit, and then that the juice kind of sits there and ferments. So
Exactly.
you get like that.
They call it agua miel, which means like honey water, like a sweet
Ah,
water.
yeah.
You let that ferment for a week or so, and its alcohol concentration it gets to a level that's very similar to beer.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. And I've always thought of agave-based spirits actually they are a little bit of like a stimulant, very much like absinthe, which I feel like somebody made a comment about alluding to your art maybe having some absinthe qualities to it. But uh, well, let's digress from that. SidXO, an artist in our community, he asks, are there many purposeful Easter eggs embedded in the bank runners that aren't immediately apparent? Like you've obviously got all these attributes and traits, but do you have other hidden things?
Yeah, I would say that some of the Easter eggs it involves like the background imagery built into the banknotes, the ultra rare characters which you don't really realize as you're looking at the first few how they're set up, but they all have a lot of meaning tied to the serial number, to the number of the notes, where just I could run through them quickly, or I don't know if time permits, but
Oh, sure we could. Here, I was just gonna pull up some here on the screen here since you brought them up here, some of the ultra rares.
okay. So I can start speaking to these. The banknote number 256 that has like a group of miners that they're mining, visually mining digital material there, and that is tied to Bitcoin's SHA-256 hashing algorithm.
Mm,
Banknote number, I can go over sort of like the bookends, like the first and the last. Uh,
yeah.
Bank runner number 1 features a composition from my Run on the Banks animation, which actually was like the foundational work that and concept that led to the creation of bank runners. So I thought it was very fitting to put that as sort of the image that kicked it all off and started sort of planting the seed for this entire collection. The
That's this
last
whole part in the middle.
this is banknote 777 is
Oh, oops,
Bitcoin
I
heaven.
clicked on the wrong
This
one.
one, if
Yep.
you want to stay on this for a second, though,
Sure. Yeah.
if you don't mind,
Yeah.
the composition in the middle is from Paradisus, which is a piece I created to really try to bring people into this vision of a future that is peaceful and prosperous and sort of like angelic, like a Bitcoin heaven. So I used this for 777. If you see the two citadels, this piece has a unique one of one. The center is unique one of one. The background images are unique one of one as well, where you have two citadels that are sort of floating.
Yeah.
And you can see that all the ultra rares also have some in this case the numbers 777 are sort of underlaid behind the blue text there.
Interesting.
So there's a mirror of this piece would be number 666, which I used like a one of one flame effect on the banknote. I used a dancing Shiva at the bottom there. Yeah,
Okay.
the real red one.
There we are. Okay.
So a dancing Shiva image where there is actually a series of all the largest global currencies emitting paper bills that are getting burnt up, and use
Oh,
this
these
for sort of,
tattoos. I just see the tattoos.
yeah, he's got some tattoos. He has sort of like the enemy of my Satoshi mask, or like the antagonist to his protagonist, I created this, I call it the banker buddy mask, where
Okay.
I sort of like took the, are you familiar with John Carpenter's They Live?
Yeah, yeah. I was literally just looking into it because there's a lot of propaganda going on right now, and they're using that. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I used that sort of design as like a base, and I created it, recreated it with sort of like fiat textures, and using like the pyramids on the $1 bill to fill the eye shapes. Um, little things like sort of the military industrial complex and pieces of credit cards, but it's kind of hard to see all that detail on that note. So here, this would be the rework of
Well, those money guns.
the money guns. Yeah, this would be the rework of the run on the banks
Right, right.
animated composition. Number 21 is about the absolute scarcity of Bitcoin being everything, potentially everything there is divided by 21 million, the absolute
Hmm.
scarcity of Bitcoin, and sort of the stamps to complement that. Number 33 is an interesting one as well, because Bitcoin has 33 epochs, which is like the 4-year periods that are separated by each halving event. Uh, 33 epochs until Bitcoin's fully distributed. So
Hmm.
that has like a one of one animation in the centerpiece there. Just some other, maybe a little personal, maybe a little meme would be, the 420 note has like a smoking
Oh
Satoshi
yeah,
with,
yeah.
and some, yeah, we have like some marijuana leaves there, and it's about transacting without censorship. So kind of to complement that idea of the Satoshi just smoking it up on top of that burning bank. We have banknote 69 has like the number go up text theme with a gorilla sort of stomping on that bank there. We
Yeah,
have,
this ape. Oh, come on, OpenSea. This this one I think is the only one with this ape, right?
yeah, all the ultra rares are the only ones that have
Yeah.
those center animations. So the ape is he doesn't show up anywhere else.
Um, that's all right. That's awesome. All right, let me. There's a few more questions here I want to get out from the community here. Zora asked if the goal is a true separation of money and state, breaking free from centralized authority. How do you see us actually getting there? What are the key steps in that transition, and what does money look like in that future?
Oh,
Yeah.
that is a question of epic proportions, isn't it? I mean, the first thing that I would say is crucial to that vision playing out is the loss of trust in the public for the central banks and the governments to be really having that monopoly on the money, and being the ones that control the money supply. So the less people who believe in it, the less people who store their value, the fruits of their labors in that currency, and start to take their economic energy out of that system and put it into other places, whether it's hard assets, whether it's property, or gold, silver, Bitcoin, Ethereum, crypto. Um, it would be accelerated if people more opt for Bitcoin, for crypto. But I do think that the first sort of pin to drop would be some sort of event that really seals the deal that these governments can't be trusted with this money. They're hyperinflating prices in the United States for food, rent, and things like that. I do believe in recent years have really made inflation a top thing in people's heads, where you see things, and I'll just call out like an example that was rather obvious, but someone posted a viral post on Twitter a while back, where he did a Walmart order for groceries. It cost him like $120, and then 3 years later, it was like nearly $400. So,
Wow.
things like that where you start to, if you were born into this world, which all of us were, where 2% inflation is the target, we don't ask questions about why it is that way. And it's just that, okay, aggregate demand should meet the increase in supply, or something like that. Um, the more people experience inflation, the more they'll be open to the idea of Bitcoin as an alternate money system. And what a future based on that really is going to look like, I'm not so sure. I might not be the best person to ask. I prefer to focus my efforts on envisioning the most positive outcomes, and communicating those, because that's really what's going to help get people on board. But the technical details, I really don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. No, I think that's totally acceptable. But I think this is where artists are really crucial, right? To um, not only just create art in general, right? But to be examining society right now, and to be able to look at it through new lenses, to look at the future and explore new things. And I think you're doing that really well. It seems like a lot of people agree with you too. So I'm really happy that we were able to have this conversation today, and get to know each other a little bit more.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ryan, for having me. I hope that I was able to answer that one more or less
Yeah.
satisfactorily. But
No, I mean the Discord loves it. I mean, people calling for monetary revolution, and I think we all get inflation, right? And we all understand how that impacts us, and it's just in the current moment getting even crazier, right? Whether you're talking
right,
about eggs or simple products, or even going to I still like to go to the theater occasionally, and actually watch a movie on a big screen, right? And even that's like, a matinee is $1 more,
right.
right?
All
And
those little things add up. They
yep,
sure do.
right. And they add up in a way that also you don't necessarily see the way that the value of them, what you have to pay with that, is then dropping and dropping and dropping. So yeah. Um, I don't want to end on too low of a note, but I do think this is incredibly exciting. And again, for your project here, 1776 banknotes here for bank runners, to be able to not only have your collector base really go after them quickly in the private sale, but then, again, within 24 hours of going public, congratulations on the sellout. And if people are interested and you're watching, go to your marketplace of choice, and pick up a banknote on secondary. Um, you know, I'll drop some links here in the Discord here for Whale, but before we go, tell people where they can find you and your work.
Okay, so on X, I'm Lucho Poletti. On Instagram, I'm also Lucho Poletti. You can find some of my stuff on places like YouTube, but I would say probably the best places to see my work are Twitter, Instagram, and also my website, which is luchopoletti.com.
Great, great, great. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you do in the future. Hopefully on Buildtree. It seems like they've been producing a lot of great tools, and I hope that you know uh, it's just this continuation of questioning, what we're doing here, and why we're here, and you know, doing it in such a great artistic way. It's really exciting.
Definitely. If I have a second, I would like to give a quick shout out to the Buildtree team,
Yeah,
uh,
please.
to Zoop, Leandro, Guillermo, everyone who who was involved. All of them chatting with me and Matthew, who did an excellent job curating, working with me from very early on with this project. I chose Buildtree because I spoke with them, I got to know them a bit, and I said, you know what, this platform, it seems like an artist first platform. They are building really impressive, really powerful tools to empower creators. I said, guys, this bank runners, it means a lot to me. It's really, really important that I can tell the story in a very particular way. They worked with me on creating this, custom drop page. I was able to put all the story on there, really execute the vision exactly how I had intended. And the drop went super smooth. I
Yeah.
mean, the only thing, like, I don't know if when it went live, there was too many people hitting the website or what, but it went down for a brief bit. But aside from that, it went off without a hitch. It was, everyone even sung praises of how well executed the drop was, how smooth the minting process was for everyone. And if there are any artists, out there listening to this and wondering, from me, someone who was like really focused on bringing my best work to a platform like Nifty Gateway that has really been, basically scaling down and only doing a couple select releases per year. Buildtree, I mean, for me, it has a better tool set. It has the ability to, store everything permanently, bulk upload like big sets, like just very powerful
Mm.
tools, a lot more features in the works, and even, the ability for artists to create their own modules that sort of add value to drops and can really, shape the way that artists create in the space in the future. Is very OG team, very, professional. These guys, they know what they're doing. They provided excellent support in terms of marketing, helping me tell my story. Just chatting
Wow.
with them
Great.
and even saying like, hey, I'm trying to, present it this way. Can you give me some feedback? Really a collaborative effort. Tons of support. Big props to those guys. Big props to Matthew, Nifty Time, again, for the quality of the result, because going back to my first outputs and how they looked, and, sending them to Matthew and saying like, dude, do these look rare enough? And just, taking it, notching that up over time and making something really good. So a lot of planning, a lot of, collaboration between the whole team and myself. I can say that, it was a great success, but I can't take credit for all
Mm.
that, because there was, a really great team working with me on this. And I don't think that this sort of success would have been possible without them.
Oh, that's awesome. No, I think the page is beautiful. I think that everything about it has been really great, and I'm really glad to hear you say that too. We heard that from the last artist we talked to with Buildtree, and my conversation with Zoop a couple weeks ago. Just about the general suite of tools that they're building and how they're interacting with artists. They really embraced this idea of working directly with the artist, going to the artist for what they need, right, and not just what we provide, right. I think that that's a big difference and really sets them apart. So that's really awesome to hear that you had such a great experience. So you heard it from Lucho. If you are somebody who is looking for this kind of environment to release your work and this kind of team to do it with, definitely check out buildtree.io. And it's actually maybe jumping the shark a little bit here, but we did just announce recently, or it is out there now, that we're going to be working with Buildtree at NFC Lisbon at the NFC Summit coming up in June. So, I don't know if you're going to be there, Lucho, but we're going to probably have a lot of great artists there, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's on my radar, and I'm seriously considering going. So there's
Cool.
a good chance that we'll be able to meet in person there.
Awesome. Well, I'll be there. So uh, I hope if you make it, we can meet in person. It's been really great to talk with you, and I'm just so excited and so happy for what you're doing here.
Thanks so much, Ryan. Shout out to you, my man. The whale community. Thanks so much for welcoming me. I really appreciate you sort of putting the spotlight on my art and helping me tell the story. And I hope we can do it again sometime soon.
Definitely. All right. Thanks. Well, thanks to everyone else for tuning in. This is a great episode of Whale and Buildtree's Artist Spotlight series, and there's more to come. So check out the Whale Discord, discord.gg/whale. Otherwise, the Whale members on Twitter, and this will be on YouTube as well for everyone to watch later. So thanks again, Lucho. Thank you, Buildtree. And everybody else, have a great morning, have a great evening, wherever you are in the world.